Welcome to episode 636 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and I'm excited to talk about FC Barcelona again. It's a Manita. It's 5 goals in Mallorca. It wasn't always going to be that case that Barcelona were going to score a ton of goals in this game. Remember, we felt a different way at halftime. I think there were reactions already at halftime. And then we know that because you play a full 90 minutes, things can change. I appreciate everyone who was with me for the last few weeks as Barcelona were dropping points. And now that they're winning again, this is the perfect time to, again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give me a good rating on the podcast apps. Even just liking this video or giving a comment on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, is a big help on the channel. As I say, for the holiday season, I got some gifts for my family. So while I hope my family isn't watching, because I hope they enjoy their Barcelona podcast merch that they might be opening on Christmas morning, if you want to help me out, again, the merch store or Patreon for as low as $3, that's a great way to, I guess, to spend some of that extra holiday cash that might be coming in. So I appreciate that. Or just for free, subscribing. That's a big help as well across all the different platforms. So I appreciate everybody being with me through thick and thin, because let's do it. 5 headlines from the 5-1 victory for Barcelona over Mallorca. Headline 1 is karma goal. Setting the scene in Mallorca. It was a soaked field. Does Mallorca have something to do with that because of believing it's going to help them play a little better or giving them a bit of an advantage against Barcelona? Maybe. Manzano, was he a bit of a help for Mallorca? Well, at least he was help to Mallorca in the early part of the game, made Barcelona think about it because a 3rd-minute yellow for Barcy on a poor tackle on Antonio Sanchez. It is a poor tackle, but to give a yellow that early in the match kind of sets a precedent that we know that Manzano loves giving out the yellows. A little bit of worrisome stuff. 7th minute, and this would be spoken about 11 more times in the game because Mallorca was offside 11 times total. But in the 7th minute, that was their first. It was an important stop for Peña's confidence, I thought. Maybe, he didn't have a lot to do in this match, but I was hoping that offside kind of set the precedent for him. And again, Mallorca already offside twice in the first 7 minutes, and they would do it 9 more times over the remaining 83 minutes and extra time. 8th minute, Rafinha goes short with one of the worst corners I've ever seen. Rafinha had an okay match, and it got certainly better in the second half. We'll get to that, but yeah, this was a bad corner. I don't want to get him off the hook for that. 11th minute, Pedri tracking back, winning the ball while Mallorca was in transition. I'm going to talk a bit more for the second headline in the tactics board to preview that about how good Pedri was in this game. Then Lamine Yamal in the 11th minute, definitely brought down in the box. Manzano says no, but that was absolutely a penalty. Samu doesn't touch the ball. And why I call this a karma goal, because right thereafter, Ferran Torres scores the karma goal seconds later. Barcelona were keeping possession, though, even though they didn't get the PK call. So good on them not to get in the ref's ear and yell at that. Remember, there were times in the past when Barcelona players would all be surrounding the ref and they would transition when coming the other way. I like the mental toughness from this team, this Hansi Flick team, that instead of crying about not getting the PK, yeah, maybe Lamine Yamal was slow to get up and was complaining, but everyone else just won the ball back immediately and created some havoc the other way. So it comes from a throw-in, as in Barcelona won possession out on the touchline. The throw-in, Pedri was given way too much space in the middle. A nice run by Olmo into the half space. He does get the ball taken off him, and then the 4 Mallorca players that should have cleared it, they didn't. So the deflection from Mojica's failed clearance goes off of one of his fellow players, and then Torres jumps on top of it. I said about Ferran Torres, at that moment in the match, everyone was full of optimism, happy he was back, because for Lewandowski, finally got a rest. The first time that he did not start a match this season. He was the only player that has started every match for Barcelona under Hansi Flick. So for Lewandowski to get a full 90-minute rest, that's nice to see, at least, because I said against Las Palmas, I thought both he and Rafinha looked fatigued. More than any other match I had seen them this season, they just looked tired more than I thought they looked bad. So I just felt like he was fatigued. And finally, Lewandowski gets that rest. This is really good, I guess, game management, if you want to call it, by Hansi Flick, because Ferran Torres, at least in the early going, was the right pick to get the start. So gets the goal, and I've said before too, for Barcelona, I don't think there's a winger or forward in the cavalry coming for January, but if, and this is a big if they can get something out of Ferran Torres and something out of Ansu Fati, or just one of them, and a little something out of Pau Victor and something out of Pablo Torre, but to repeat it, if Barcelona can get something out of Ferran Torres, and they need to, they could do some winning in the springtime because they absolutely have to rotate Rafinha and Lewandowski and Lamine Yamal on some occasions. This is just not sustainable to play them and start them every single match. Headline 2 is control the middle, use the width. tactically, really like what Hansi Flick was doing in that first half. 19th minute, Lamine Yamal, what a run from him. Mallorca completely collapsed around him in the middle of the field, and Lamine Yamal kind of popping up in central locations. He finds Balde in a ton of space. Torres making the near post run. It was stopped by the keeper, but hey, I was optimistic at that point. Barcelona up 1-0. Positive signs. 21st minute, a pass from Pedri that was absolute class. Almost held it up for him. That made all that work. And then Rafinha's cut back to Lamine Yamal was completely scuffed by the 17-year-old. In a big-time moment for Lamine Yamal, but as we know, a little foreshadowing, he makes up for it later. Now time for that tactics board, and because Ferran Torres was injured, he's not yet available back yet. So Torre, just put an S on the end of that. That's Ferran Torres. That's what you need to know. All right, so this was the starting lineup for Hansi Flick today against Mallorca in that 4-2-3-1. And what I really liked about Barcelona today was they were playing really enjoyable football in that first half. Again, we're not talking about the goal just yet, but in the first about 24 minutes of this game, I really liked the tactics that Hansi Flick was employing because I think he was finding the spaces that Mallorca were leaving available, and that's why Barcelona were having such success. Again, Pedri was magical, and Lamine Yamal was playing more centrally as a cheat code. So Mallorca, to draw, we don't have the Mallorca team here, but Mallorca was basically trying to defend, and for those who are listening, they were defending very narrow. So even though I'm showing this on the tactics board on YouTube, I want to just explain it for the listeners as well. So Mallorca were defending very, very narrow. So to offset that, Barcelona were basically keeping Lamine Yamal in the middle of the field. And it was Koundé who was pushing forward a bit farther wide because Barcelona were playing such a high line. They were also, when they were looking to turn them back over, and then Concedes was kind of right in here, and then it was Pedri playing off, and then Olmo playing on to Pedri. So, again, for those listeners, this was generally the formation. Again, for those watching, when I say this, only really two players were stretching wide outside of what Mallorca was defending. So when Barcelona were even attacking, they were attacking with 8 of their 10 outfield players in the middle of the park. And it was Lamine Yamal who was more in a central role, and then Torres kind of making runs off of Lamine Yamal and trying to find that space in the half spaces. And then the same thing Rafinha on the left side. With Olmo dropping in, again, Lamine Yamal making runs into the middle of the park. And as Lamine Yamal is driving himself forward and kind of just running wherever he wants to with the ball, it was up to Dani Olmo to work off of Lamine Yamal and find those spaces, even on the right of him, on the left of him. And then again, Pedri and Concedes were in support to either get the ball back in a rest defense. So we talk about rest defense. It's a really boring term, but that allows Barcelona to get the ball back and to kind of neutralize the fact that if Mallorca are going to defend so narrow, which means that Barcelona should be spamming crosses, they still weren't spamming crosses because they were finding spaces into the half space because Lamine Yamal, Pedri, and Olmo are so good at attracting attention. So the minute Mallorca brought a second defender to any of those three, that left space for everybody else, either in the middle or they were finding Balde and Koundé out on the wing so far that Balde was finding space, and it was a 1v1 situation for him to try to cut back to Rafinha or to Lamine Yamal or to Olmo or to Pedri. And the other side, Koundé, he would just hold it up. So he wasn't really trying to dive forward and pass the ball in, because then once Koundé would hold the ball up or get that out wide, Lamine Yamal would then just come back over to the right side, and Barcelona would kind of settle more into that 4-2-3-1 and push Torres, I should say, and then Rafinha and Olmo into the box more. So tactically, really like what Barcelona had going on in that first half, and I think it's a big reason why they, even though they were only up 1-0 at that point, I think everyone felt like they should have been up by 2 or 3 goals, because I think tactically Hansi Flick absolutely nailed it today. Headline 3 is Mallorca makes it happen. I just went through the tactics where I praised Barcelona, I praised Hansi Flick, I praised someone to the midfield and the attackers for their work rate and working together and working off the ball and their close associations and all things that were happening well. But we know that the scoreline didn't reflect how well Barcelona was playing in the rest of that first half. So here's how Mallorca made it happen. First, 24th minute, yellow for Concedes. Don't know if that got in his head because he was really good until he came off there in the second half. But I skip ahead a little bit here. The game got really vertical, maybe too vertical for Barcelona. 31st minute, they could have scored another Olmo in transition. 37th minute, Rafinha in transition finds Ferran Torres, but a heavy touch denied him his second goal. Ferran Torres, after that first goal, a lot of bad touches. Really wasn't working for him. And that led to the 43rd minute when Mallorca gets the equalizer. Maffeo was the only one on. Now, instead of insulting Barcelona or saying this is a problem and the Liga teams have figured them out, I do want to push back on that. Because I've been saying in good times and bad this season that it's a high-risk, high-reward system that Hansi Flick plays. While they did concede that goal, Mallorca scored one goal at home in a side that is sixth in the league table. They were offside 11 times in this game. Again, it's high-risk, high-reward. You take those risks, that you put those bodies forward, and you play that system so that you turn the opponent over higher up the field. That's why you play the high line. You keep the pressure on, you create more big chances, and you score those goals, and you put a team away. And also in the second half, foreshadowing this, if you play that way, you just wind up wearing your opponent into the ground. And there's a reason why this ended 5-1. Again, foreshadowing on that. But the reason why Mallorca got their one is because they finally got this onside trap, offside trap, but onside for them. They got it right. They threw a number of bodies, and kind of the way that Xavi used to play against a five at the back. Mallorca threw 5 bodies forward to kind of play along that back line and look to get a numerical advantage vertically in transition, going directly at Barcelona's back line, and it finally works out. And it was a little bit lucky, I think, that Maffeo in that time stayed onside, but he was the one onside. And Muriqi, who finds it slotting it home, he was offside, and Antonio Sanchez was also offside. So the two forwards in the 4-4-2 were both offside on this run. And that is where the attention for Inigo Martinez, Cubarsí, and Balde were on. They were focused on the front two, who were the ones for the entirety of the first half, were making those runs in behind. But Maffeo, as the right back, coming inside, inverting, and making that run in as kind of the delayed behind those two, winds up staying onside. That's just really good football by Mallorca and a really smart play by Maffeo. So Maffeo stays onside, gets forward, and then, Muriqi winds up completing the cross and finding the back of the net on the back post in transition, because Muriqi's a striker. And even though Muriqi, credit to him, he's only scored 3 goals this season. One of them came against Barcelona. One of them came against Real Madrid. And, hey, his job is to keep Mallorca up. And so far this season, Mallorca defensively have been really sound, and he's been a big part of that. And they've gotten just enough goals to get results. And it looked like at that moment, maybe they would. At that point, I put in my notes 20 minutes of quiet from Lamine Yamal to end the first half. Yep, so that's true. Even though we know that's not going to last forever, but that is true. And then right before halftime, another big stop by Leo Roman. It was good in this match. Mallorca, they conceded 5, but their goalkeeper kept them in it. Gets that stop on Rafinha. Yeah, and I think I saw some push back and said that Barcelona were too wasteful, but I saw some say that Barcelona were only creating chances from counters or big defensive mistakes by Mallorca, but very much like I just broke down with that tactics board, I don't think that's true, because I think Barcelona were taking what Mallorca was giving them, which is counter-attacking opportunities, and they were making defensive mistakes because Barcelona were turning them over so high up the pitch. So, yeah, you take what the opponent gives you, and Barcelona were wasteful. That part is true, but I'm not concerned that their only chances were coming in the way that Mallorca was giving them the chances. Just convert your chances and you win a match. It doesn't matter how it happens. Headline 4 is Manzano finally concedes. This is a bit tongue-in-cheek. I think if Barcelona didn't get the results today, and if this had ended 1-1, then yes, I think people would have been talking about Gil Manzano. Of course, Gerard Piqué's great rival from years past, and he is certainly a referee in La Liga that Barca fans are used to his face, are used to his games. I don't actually think he's that poor at all. I think he generally does this against everyone, as in he throws those yellows early, tries to take control. If anything, he oversteps a little bit, but I don't know. But anyway, Barcelona started getting the calls a little more in the second half. 53rd minute, a free kick by Rafinha after a foul, forced another save by Leo Roman, again, keeping his team in the game. 55th minute, this is what happens. Does this pen make up for the one that wasn't given the first half? Did he get a little bit of a talking to from some of the referees who might have been on his cell phone? Maybe, but it's an almost through ball for Lamine Yamal, and clearly Mojica pulls him down. This one is clear as day. The arm was there, the trip on the lower body was there, and good on Rafinha, converting a good PK. No run-up, just all business on this PK. Put it in the bottom corner where the keeper couldn't get to it with plenty of power. Again, no run-up. Good stuff, Rafinha. Way to be a leader with that captain's armband. 58th minute, Muriqi was offside in the diving header, but I felt like that was a bit of worrying signs from Barcelona. They were looking a bit gassed themselves and looking like, just like Mallorca needed subs, looked like Barcelona needed subs as well. It also did not help. I thought that Ferran Torres was pretty poor in the second half, and this is where I think he scored the goal, but after that, Ferran just kind of looked like the typical Ferran Torres that does get criticized a lot by Kool-Aid. And then headline 5 is champagne assists. Really, I probably could have taken these final 3 goals and turned them into other headlines, but I felt like the chapters and story of this game kind of made those last 3 goals come in this final section. This game had a lot of twists and turns, and while Mallorca did deserve their goal, as I already said, and gave credit to them, the 2-1, it felt like Barcelona had taken control of the game at that moment, and then the subs came on, and in the 72nd minute, Pau Victor and Frankie de Jong on for Ferran Torres and Olmo. At that moment, was it the subs that helped Barcelona seize complete control of the game? Maybe. I do think that de Jong brought energy. Pau Victor also brought some energy, helping to press before the 3-1 comes. But I think the bigger thing I would say, the 2 factors as to why this game flipped into a blowout, is that 1, by that time, Mallorca looked a bit gassed. It looked like even with their subs, unlike the Barcelona subs, didn't seem like they were ready to play into this game. I think those who had to play the 90 minutes for Mallorca today were just playing on tired legs. And this is the kind of game and part of the season where Mallorca played on the weekend, now playing on the Tuesday. Very much like we worry about Barcelona's depth. I mean, for teams like Mallorca, it's even worse. You just don't have the legs to rotate, and they really, this season, getting the results they have, they've been trying to play kind of their Gala 11 over and over again, but I'd say that them being gassed and losing steam is part. Then the second part of this is that Lamine Yamal kind of flipped that switch in the 72nd minute when the subs came on. He found the game again. Remember, he started the game, finding the game, kind of lost it a bit, and then when he found it again with the Mallorca players running out of steam, I mean, this is also just class. This is whether players are tired or not. This is just class for him on that 3-1. The outside of the boot cross. That's why I said champagne football from Lamine Yamal to Rafinha. Beautiful assist. Rafinha on the doorstep making that run. Pau Victor, good work by him also on the press to help win the ball back initially, and then making space for Rafinha inside the box for him to find that space at the back post. But yeah, this goal, Lamine Yamal, crazy. Beautiful stuff. Then the 4-1 soon after. The game was put to bed. Lamine Yamal. What a ball into Pau Victor. He doesn't get credit for the assist, that being Lamine Yamal, but he's the one who made this goal happen. They double him on the touchline, so 45 yards from their own goal. They double him on the sideline, and yet he finds Pau Victor in behind. What a ball that was. And then de Jong was so free for the rebound because, again, if they're going to double Lamine Yamal at midfield on the sideline, there's obviously going to be grand amounts of space. And Pau Victor, while his cross was cut out initially, the rebound falls to de Jong, and de Jong, so wide open, so free, blasts it home, leaves no doubt. So good on you, Frankie de Jong, for being in the right space, and Pau Victor, for those who to come on as subs to help put this game away. Again, that's a positive sign from them as well. 82nd minute then, more rest for Pedri and Concedes. On comes Eric Garcia, welcome back, and Gabi. And then the 5-1, as I said, de Jong loving all that space that Mallorca was leaving behind, trying to get numbers forward. So that meant that there was a lot of space for de Jong to run into as a late runner into the box, to dribble the ball into. But again, this is all about Lamine Yamal. Nice diagonal, though, from the sideline. They find Lamine Yamal against Mallorca in a 1v1 situation. I like Mallorca as a player, but it was not his day. He did get the initial tackle on Lamine Yamal, but de Jong was there to take the ball off of him and cross it into a wide-open Pau Victor. That's a goal and assist on the day for Frankie de Jong. And we've been talking a lot about Frankie de Jong, so I actually think in a positive performance today, I don't have much more to talk about other than he did what he was supposed to do. Came on the 72nd minute, added a lot of energy, took advantage of the space, got a goal and an assist. Pau Victor, the same thing in limited time. He made 2 goals happen, came off the bench, added to the press. So if I'm Hansi Flick and I'm thinking about this game, I'm like, hey, maybe those guys deserve a few more minutes here. But if I'm Gabi, I'm like, hey, where are my minutes? And that's a good problem to have for Hansi Flick. It looks like if the team can be deep, there is a Gala 11. And we can have the argument whether or not, if they're available, that Barcelona can really feel like they're playing well. Concedes coming back into the 11 after missing Las Palmas, Olmo coming back and being healthy, and Lamine Yamal starting. And those 3 starting together, it's almost as if you're setting off alarm bells in the opposite direction. Without those 3, there was something wrong. And those three have all come back together, and they started together. And I know it was 1-1, and the subs did take advantage of putting this game away, but Barcelona played better. It just looked better. The eye test for this match, even when it was 1-1, the eye test told you that things were going to turn around, and they did in that second half. And the goals, the floodgates opened, and it all worked out for them. 87th minute to close this game. Rafinha off Fermin Lopez. Barcelona should have had a 6 right after that, but then I wasn't going to be able to use Manita in Mallorca as my title. So I'm glad that they, I'm not glad, but yeah, so it didn't go to 6 for me. Thank you. Lamine Yamal was a bit too cute here. Roman, a really nice stop on the first shot, but couldn't find a wide open Fermin Lopez, that being Lamine Yamal at the spot. Anyway, Barcelona, here's the damning stat about Lamine Yamal dependencia. Barcelona without him in the Liga is 0-1-3. With him, they had 12-0. There are other factors there, but that's just the Lamine Yamal stat that you're going to see everywhere. I'm giving it to you because I know you're going to see it a lot. Again, the final score too, 5-1 with Mallorca being offside 11 times. That is just bonkers. But this was Barcelona's game. They control this game. And I hope they can carry this momentum on Saturday against Real Betis, an early start time. Barcelona have not been good in early kickoffs for quite some time. It's because they do usually play in, we'll say, the prime time game in Spain at night. So maybe they're not used to kickoffs that are earlier in the day. So this is a bit of an earlier one on Saturday, 10:15 a.m. against Real Betis here on the East Coast. You can join me on Big Up for that one for just the watch along. And then the YouTube live stream preview is at 9:45 a.m. on Saturday. So I do hope you join me for that. And in the meantime, again, subscribing to the YouTube channel. Following me anywhere on social media, giving a good rating on the podcast apps, $3 on Patreon, or getting something for your family and friends on the merch store or for yourself. Again, maybe you'll wait till after the holiday and grandma gets you that nice Christmas money and you get yourself a nice shirt to let everyone know when you're around in the world, hola culés. So hey, hello to everyone. But instead of saying hola culés, I'm actually going to say goodbye to all of you. Again, thanks so much for watching these 5 headlines and being with me through thick and thin, wins or losses. So until next time, as always, Forza Barca.